Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to my new channel. Today I'm going to be talking about the G7 again, or should I call them the Pussycat Trolls. Those who have seen my last video will know what I'm talking about. Anyway, before I continue, I want to give a really big shout out to my Patreon members. I've had a couple of new members joining. Really appreciate that. And I also really appreciate all the coffees that you guys have been buying me. Again, really much appreciated. And for the rest of you, if I can kindly request that you like, you share, you subscribe, you click the bell icon, and most importantly, if you can comment. Your comments really help raising the algorithms, because that puts my video more up there to a wider audience. And as you know, channels like myself do not get monetized and do not get spread out by YouTube's algorithms because of the sensitive subjects I talk about. So your help will put the video more out there. Also, I need some help posting to Chinese social media as well. So if any of you that can help me, that would be really appreciated. If you can email me or send me a comment, I'll reply back to you. So yeah, that will also help as well. And finally, guys, I want to give a shout out to all the love and support I've been getting for the past few months, and especially the last few days. I really appreciate all of that, and I will continue making great videos to entertain you and also to talk about politics as well. We have also reached 5,000 subscriptions. I want to try and head to 10,000. We want to try and get as many people on board as possible, because it's very important to spread the truth out there. There's a lot of people out there who are fed up of listening to one-sided media and one-sided politicians just talking a lot of nonsense. So it's important for channels as myself to come out and speak the truth. Without further ado, guys, I'm going to continue with the show. I'm going to talk about the G7 again today, mainly because there's a couple of new news articles which have come into light, and also I'm going to be talking about stuff that I've not talked about before. So the first thing I want to talk about, guys, is I've noticed this picture, and I've noticed the Japanese Prime Minister standing right at the back. So I thought to myself, hang on a second, there's something not right here. Why is the Japanese Prime Minister, who has the third largest economy in the world, standing at the back for? Surely he's more important than Boris or the Canadian Prime Minister. Surely he should be standing at the front. So then I thought about it, and I thought, let's see who he's standing next to. So you got the Italian Prime Minister standing at the back, who nobody really cares about. You got the two European parliamentaries standing at the back, again, who nobody cares about. They don't even run a country, so I don't even know why they're in the picture. And you got the Japanese Prime Minister standing there right next to them. And if I was the Japanese Prime Minister, guys, I would be very annoyed putting me at the back with these guys, because that's very insulting. And that's not the way to treat the third largest economy in the world. And it must be quite insulting for him. I mean, look at his face. He doesn't look very happy at all. Ideally, he should be standing right next to Biden on the left. But Biden's saying to Boris, come on, put the good-looking guy right next to me. You know, he's going to make me look good. Come on, Boris, come on. And Boris is like, yes, sir, as long as I can stand in the middle. He's okay, Mr. Biden. You're like, yeah, sure, we have a deal. And the next picture I want to talk about, guys, is this one. And as you can see, they look like they're having a great time. They look like they're on holiday, to be honest. They're not here for a summit or talk about important issues like climate change or COVID. You know, they look like they're having the time of their lives. Look, they've got no face mask on. They're not doing any social distancing. They're watching a show. They're enjoying themselves. They're enjoying the beach. You know, they're not really here for a summit. They're just here on holiday. And one thing you may have noticed, guys, is this little head over here. By zooming in, you can see the South Korean president and his wife blocking his view. And this is probably the Japanese Prime Minister. As you can see, he's been shoved at the back yet again. So he's not really having a good time in this summit. He keeps being shoved at the back. So I guess that's the kind of treatment you get if you're a lapdog for the US. You just get no respect. The next thing I'm going to be talking about is the G7 summit meeting itself. And a couple of things missing, guys. Where are the other leaders? Where are the South Korean leader, the Australian leader, South African leader who were invited? I mean, what are they doing? Are they standing at the back watching them, not allowed to say anything and not allowed to sit on the table? Why invite them in the first place then, to just have a holiday? Are their views not important? And where's the Indian Prime Minister? I thought he was going to be on teleconferencing on these videos, and he's nowhere to be seen. I don't know about you guys, but if I was a South Korean president, Australian or South African president, and I've traveled halfway around the world, and you're not even going to let me sit on the table to give my views, and you're going to make me feel important, you're just going to put me in the back where I'm not even shown or needed. I mean, where am I in this picture? Why put these two insignificant European leaders here? Why can't you put the South Korean leader here? You put the Australian leader here, and put the South African leader here as well. So why invite them in the first place? Makes no sense, and I think it's quite insulting to those countries. So the next thing I want to talk about, guys, is social distancing and quarantine. As you know, the Queen had arrived to meet some of the leaders, and you can see there's no social distancing. Nobody's wearing a mask. The Queen is 95 years old, so she's very prone to catching diseases, very prone to catching coronavirus or anything else. And 8 weeks ago, she was burying her husband, and so one should be more careful coming to a place like this on public, especially during COVID times. And another thing I want to talk about is quarantine. In England, we have a rule. We have a lot of green, amber, and red countries. And amber countries, if you're coming from an amber country, you need to quarantine for 10 days. So you can see here, this is the government website. I'm getting this from the government, guys. This is not a website or anything like that. Amber list countries and territories. So the amber list rules are, if you're traveling to England, you must take a COVID test. But one of the most important thing, if you're arrival in, you must quarantine for 10 days. So do you think Biden or any other leaders from the European countries have quarantined for 10 days? No, not at all. All the countries, including United States, France, Germany, Canada, they're all on the amber list. So why are they not quarantining, and why do the rest of the British public have to quarantine when they arrive to England? It just goes to show that politicians have one rule and the public have the next. And this is why social media, everybody's talking about it, and everyone's asking questions like, why are these leaders get one rule and the rest of us get another rule? And this is why the British public and especially people around social media are not happy. And you can understand why. Why do these leaders get one rule and why do the rest of us public get another rule? We're still in lockdown, so we have to still abide by the rules. And if we go outside the rules, we get fined or we get put in jail. But these leaders get to do what they want. Let me show you some more pictures. So, look, in front of the cameras, they're showing that they are socially distancing. 30 minutes later, they're all kind of right next to each other, no masks on, they're mingling. Again, in front of the cameras, everyone's like touching their elbows, they're staying, a distance away from each other. But when the cameras are not there, they're right next to each other, hugging each other, touching each other. Again, look, when the cameras are not showing, they're all standing right next to each other. They don't have a care in the world. You see the barbecue here, which is the most expensive barbecue in the world, by the way. 90 million this has cost. And again, you see people not social distancing. Again, you see people not social distancing, and there's cameras, people taking pictures all over the place. They don't really have any disregards for any social distancing at all. But when it comes to showing off in front of the cameras, they'll be doing this, they'll be touching elbows, taking group pictures, standing away from each other. But in reality, they don't really care about rules or regulations. They just do what they want. Going back to this picture, guys, can you notice something different here? Can you notice that this table has purely got Europeans in there? You got the French president, you got German chancellor, you got the Italian prime minister, and you got the two European parliamentaries. And they're just all on holiday. Look at them, they enjoy themselves, they're laughing, they're joking. And the main thing is they're just hanging around together, they're sticking together. There's no sign of Boris anywhere. There's no sign of Biden anywhere. There's no sign of any other countries joining them. and mixing with them. It just shows solidarity between the Europeans, and they pretty much stick together. So Biden and his anti-China rhetoric is not really coming down on any of these guys. And Boris is pretty much running around, joking around, and having the whale of a time in this summit. This is Boris Johnson in Cornwall, going for a swim in the water. You can see how much he's enjoying himself. He's loving it. He's loving this trip. Taxpayers' money putting to good use. Forget business. Let's go for pleasure. Look how far he's bloody swimming. Seriously. He's lucky there's no sharks here. Next thing on my agenda, guys, is this cruise ship that the police had hired to house about 3,000 police officers. So they were staying here, and again, looks like they were having a whale of a time, having a holiday by the looks of it. So 3,000 of them were basically in a cruise ship. And I don't know if you know, guys, but cruise ships have been banned because of COVID. There aren't any cruise ships around anywhere in the world because they've all been shut down or they run out of business, or they're not allowed to basically sail the sea because of a COVID crisis. So you got 3,000 police officers there, and there's stories about a dozen of them catching COVID while they were in there as well. So that's a bit of a worry. But yeah, again, looks like they've been having a whale of a time and a holiday. And £90 million this would cost them, the whole summit. Most of it is with the security. And can you imagine how much homeless people you can feed with 90 million? It's a lot of homeless people. In fact, probably all the homeless people in the UK, you can feed them and house them for like a year. So there's a lot of money, guys. And not like UK is rich at the moment. They're suffering a lot at the moment because of Brexit and because of COVID. They don't have any money to spend. So I don't know where they coughed up this 90 million from. So then you see stories like this: tenfold increase in COVID cases in Cornwall following Bank Holiday sunshine and G7 preparations. Obviously, no one's going to follow your COVID rules, because why should they when you got all the world leaders not following any COVID rules either? So what do you expect? Seriously, what the hell do you expect? If these government leaders are not going to follow simple rules of social distancing and putting masks on, well, how do you expect the population to do? Why is it one rule for us and another rule for these leaders? Why is nobody quarantining? So can somebody please explain to me why these leaders can come to this country on UK without quarantining, not follow any social distancing rules, while if we go out the country and we come back, we have to quarantine in a hotel for 10 days, and then we have to follow all the social distancing rules, and if we don't, we get fined £10,000, and if we don't pay, we go into jail. Can someone bloody explain me that? Is this actually fair? Please explain, is this actually fair? Absolutely ridiculous. Absolutely ridiculous. Never seen or heard anything so stupid in my whole life. Am I the only one in this world that's fed up of all the double standards, guys? It's like one rule for a leader, another rule for a citizen, one rule for one country, another rule for another country, one rule if you're friends with America, another rule if you're not. I'm just fed up of all the double standards out there. Absolutely fed up. Seriously, I'm sick of it. Anyway, guys, I'm going to talk about the next story here. Biden's given this bike as a present to Boris. And as you can see, first look at it, it looks quite nice. It's got the British flags there. But then you look closely and you notice the stripes and the stars. And there's only like 5 stars in there. And I'm sure the American flag's got 50 stars. So where's the rest of the stars? Does that mean about 5 or 6 states are important and the rest are not? You got all of this space to fill up with stars. Why is this space empty? Seriously, whoever's designed this bike doesn't know a thing about Americans or trying to insult Americans on purpose. Next part of my story, I'm going to be talking about the South Korean Japanese leader. And as you can see, this was the first time they've met in a summit, and there are some serious issues between the two. The two countries are having a trade war at the moment, and it's related to Japanese war crimes, and South Korea obviously wanted Japan to pay for it, and Japan are refusing. So President Moon of South Korea wanted to sit and talk to the Japanese Prime Minister, but he got rejected. He's saying unsuitable conditions. So as you can see, guys, Biden has a lot more work he needs to do if he wants to counter China. Because one thing, if he wants to counter China, he needs South Korea and Japan on the same side. And at the moment, there is a big divide between South Korea and Japan. And both the countries have China as the main trading partner, as the number one trading partner. And none of those countries really can afford to decouple from China as well, because they've already decoupled from each other. So now we're getting to the meat of the story, guys. And the meat of the story is issues between Britain and the EU. And obviously it's Brexit related. So all of the papers, you would see this article here. Boris Johnson is accusing Emmanuel Macron, saying that Northern Ireland was not part of UK. And Emmanuel Macron has hit back, saying, listen, Europeans know all about the UK sovereignty. Macron is in a sarcastic rant at Britain in a G7 speech. And also, Macron has said, keep your word to the Europeans. Macron warns Boris and demands the reset of French relations. And also, Emmanuel Macron is telling Boris to calm down after unleashing ultimate insult against UK. And bravo, Boris Johnson leaves Macron fuming after removing EU flags ahead of G7 summit. So you can see a lot of bitching going on between Boris and the French president. And Boris obviously had accused Macron of not knowing where Northern Ireland is, but Macron has been given an interview in the paper saying, we know exactly about what UK is, we know exactly what UK sovereignty is, and Boris Johnson basically signed the papers, signed the agreement, the Brexit agreement. We did not force him, and all we're asking him to do is abide by these agreements that he signed for, and which I have to agree with, because Boris, when he came to power, the first thing he wanted to do is sign the Brexit deal. Unfortunately for the UK, after Boris signed the Brexit deal, all of these issues started popping up with Northern Ireland, and we realised we got a really bad deal. The whole British public realised what a bad deal we had. It's all Boris's fault, really. And instead of blaming himself, he's blaming the EU for it when he signed the agreement himself. So it just makes no sense. So what does America think about all of this? Well, Americans have been very disappointed by this summit. And a lot of the American papers are saying that this summit has been a waste of time. And Biden had come to this summit expecting to talk about China, expecting a strong anti-Chinese coalition and anti-Chinese message to be sent out. And none of that happened. It was basically a whisper at best. Biden did not get the results they wanted. There was a lot of opposition from the EU, especially from the French and German as well, and of course the Italians as well. One of the things Biden has been pushing for is a push for the European countries to push China on the origins of the COVID. And obviously he wanted to push the Wuhan lab theory, the conspiracy theory. And the Europeans have completely rejected him. They said, no, sorry, we don't believe in that, and we don't want to get involved in that. And even Biden's little puppy, Boris, has came along and said, it doesn't look like COVID came from a Wuhan lab as the G summit ends. So even Boris backstabbed Biden, and I can imagine Biden was not very happy, and the Americans are not very happy at all with the Europeans as well as the British. There was a lot of bickering going on. Most of the talks were overshadowed by Brexit talks. Merkel was meeting Biden for the first time after she found out she was being spied on. From what the German papers and what the other papers are saying is basically Merkel was avoiding Biden and Biden was avoiding Merkel. They were hardly being seen together, hardly even talk to each other off camera. So there's a huge issue there. The Japanese Prime Minister just went along with the majority, really. And as you can see, there's more European voices in here than anybody else. So the Japanese Prime Minister probably went with the majority. And also, he probably did not want to pour out a strong message against China, because last time he did, he got heavily criticized for it, not only in China but also in Japan. One thing I'm going to be talking about is Biden's alternative to China's Belt and Road Initiative. And you can see here, Build Back Better. So what does Build Back Better means? Better than what? Is it better than the BRI scheme? What is it better than? It makes no sense. And they're talking about 40 trillion. When America can't even afford to build the infrastructure in their own country, how are they going to build infrastructure in other countries? And who's going to build it? Because there's no better builders in the world than China. So the way the BRI works is China and these countries work together to see what schemes would help the BRI and what schemes would benefit not only that country itself, but also to China, and how it can link to the BRI. Then China would provide loans to that country. And not only that, Chinese construction companies would overlook the project, so that avoids any of the money being siphoned off to corruption or siphoned off to other areas. So this way, China manages the money, manages the project, and they also hire a lot of local workers as well. So it's not all Chinese workers, they also hire local workers. So they help the local economy as well. So this way, China manages the money, so make sure these countries don't go into any debt or anything like that. So all of that money, because it's Chinese money, it gets put into good use. Even the American papers and the American journalists are saying this Build Back Better scheme isn't enough to counter China, because they know it's just not going to work. I mean, America has got very bad reputation when it comes to infrastructure. Their country is crumbling, is out of date, and any new infrastructure projects they do, the costs just spiral out of control, they can't finish it, and the costs just go up and up. And you can't beat the Chinese when it comes to construction, you just can't. Plus, a lot of these American loans would have a lot of conditions in place, like human rights, and you got to go green, and all these other conditions. And a lot of these development countries, they're not going to go for that, because they have human rights issues, they have issues with green, because they can't afford to go green. They need infrastructure first, and then, once that's built, then they can go green. They haven't got unlimited money, and that is a huge debt trap as well, because the way BRI works with China overlooks the project and makes sure the countries don't go into debt. But with America, what they would do, they would just keep putting these countries into debt and more debt, and so they become Americans' bitches. So America will be able to control them. So that's what America wants, and that's the whole point of this. In my opinion, guys, this is just not going to work. Biden is having trouble just to get past Congress his own infrastructure plan for America. And that still hasn't passed Congress, and we're talking about 6 trillion here. And now he's talking about 40 trillion for the rest of the world to build an infrastructure. Do you really think Congress is going to go for that? Even if they go for it, which development country is going to go for this? Are you going to trust American builders to build in your country? Are you going to trust America to put you into debt and you have to be slaves to America for the rest of your life? No country is going to go for that. They're not that stupid. And the countries that would take this kind of money are the corrupt countries and the corrupt leaders, the corrupt dictators, and they would probably pocket most of it, to be honest, and hardly anything would go into the country itself. This doesn't happen in the BRI because China controls most of the money going in and out, and so they control what goes into the project, what goes out, etc. You see a lot of people online talking about how BRI is a debt trap to a lot of these development countries. And I don't see that the case. I think that's just a ploy by the Western media to destabilize the BRI. There's 140 countries which have signed up to the BRI. And most of these projects are on time and on budget. And obviously things have slowed down because of COVID, but things are starting back up again now. And in the early times of the BRI, when it was first announced, and there was a few countries which have signed up straight away, and Sri Lanka was one of them. And the problem was in the beginning, China did not control the money as much as they do now. So nowadays, all the money that gets given by China, you have to go through all these approval processes. You have to make sure the money goes to the right people, and China will overlook all of that. They want to make sure the project gets done. It doesn't get siphoned off to other projects. It doesn't get money doesn't go into corruption, for example. So they're doing that now, but in the beginning they didn't do it as much, especially with Sri Lanka. So a lot of that BRI money went into corruption and corrupted individuals, and that's one of the reasons why Sri Lanka defaulted on their loan. And it was actually Sri Lanka's idea to give the port to China for a 99-year lease. It wasn't China's idea. So you still got 140 countries who are happy with the BRI, the project is going according to time and on budget. And most of these countries have already completed, and you can see huge results to the economy of a lot of these countries, especially Central Asian countries, where a freight train goes all the way through to Russia, through to Europe. And these freight trains are increasing every month, and a lot of these Central Asian countries are benefiting from that. And also countries like Laos, Malaysia, Thailand, there's a lot of countries who are benefiting from the BRI. Indonesia is also benefiting, Singapore is benefiting as well, and a lot of South American countries are also benefiting as well. But obviously, this project is still in the early stages, and if you wait until another 5 or 10 years, you will see the full effect of the BRI, and you can see all the countries that are involved and see how much trade increases, because China is the trade capital of the world, and China trades to every single country over the world, and China is the biggest trade partner to a lot of countries. So once BRI is fully complete, and all of these countries will be able to trade with China and trade via China, and it'll be a huge network, and everybody that's in the BRI will benefit from it. And it's a great idea by Xi Jinping, and once it comes into fruition, it'll be benefit to not only China but all the countries around China who are kind of invested in the Belt and Road scheme. And the people that are kind of slating it or putting it down are the West, really, and the West are pretty much jealous of the success. They don't want it to be a success, so they're coming up with all these ideas and making up stories like it's a debt trap, and trying to stop people from working with it, and stop countries from signing up to it. So all of these stories saying it's a debt trap and stuff, it's just a bunch of crap, really. The biggest debt trap in the world is America, and any country that's debted to them, you're basically screwed for the rest of your life. So they think that China is trying to do the same, but no, China is the only country who's actually trying to help these development countries. Look, all the projects going on in Africa, all the infrastructure projects, and recently there's been a high-speed rail service in Nigeria which was completed on time and budget, and things like that help these development countries build up their infrastructure and build up their networks, and in turn that builds up the economy. So anyone that says Chinese BRI is a debt trap doesn't really know what they're talking about. Finally, guys, I want to talk about the final thing. All the papers I saw in the UK this week is basically branding the G7 a complete failure. It's a complete failure because none of it addresses climate change, none of it addresses COVID aid. Vaccines distribution around the world has fallen short. They promised 1 billion vaccines all over the world when the world needs around 12 billion. And these billion vaccines that are being promised, they're not going to get them straight away. They're going to make sure their own population gets all vaccinated first. Then any excess would go to those countries, and it'll be too late by then. They need vaccines now. So basically, they spent most of this time, looking at sites, enjoying the holiday, talking about China here and there, bickering about Brexit. You got the South Korean president and the Japanese presidents avoiding each other. You got Merkel and Biden avoiding each other. You got Boris and Macron giving each other pot shots about Brexit. So that's why this whole thing looks like they're on a paid holiday, £19 million worth of paid holiday, when all of this could have been easily done over telecommunication. Why do they have to come all the way here and just bicker among themselves? Nothing was done, nothing was gained. And the way Americans are seeing this has all been a failure for them. They didn't get what they wanted. They wanted an anti-Chinese coalition. They wanted to get very much a strong anti-Chinese message sent out, and that did not happen. It was a very weak anti-Chinese message, which the Chinese easily brushed off. So Biden wasn't very happy about that. And one of the funniest things is Macron saying to Biden, last time I checked the North Atlantic, I could not see China anywhere. And obviously Biden was not amused by this, and which is right. If you look at the European countries and NATO and the North Atlantic, the country which they're mostly looking at is Russia, and they're more interested in Russia. They don't care about Chinese right now. It's not an immediate threat. The immediate threat to America is China, and that's obviously for geopolitical reasons, not for military or any other reasons. The only reason America wants to put down China is because they're a threat to America being number one. And all these other European countries, especially France and Germany, they can see that. So I just want to end this by saying the G7 nowadays people can see right through it. The British public are not happy. It's just double standards. The G7 was originally formed to look after the world, look at world issues, look at climate change, look at human rights issues around the world, and help, things like COVID and emergencies around the world. And this G7 just seems like a bunch of leaders coming together and enjoying a holiday. They're not here to discuss politics or look at issues around the world, look at human rights, look at Myanmar, Syria, Yemen, Palestine. Was any of that discussed? No, none of that was discussed. When they talk about climate change, they all said one thing: oh, we're going to go carbon neutral by 2050 or something like that. That's just a cop-out. They're not doing anything for climate change. When it comes to vaccinations, they're hardly providing any vaccinations to these poor countries. It's just been a failure, really. Biden didn't get what he wanted. He wanted some strong anti-Chinese message, and the rest of the people that have come to this summit, they just come here for holidays. And the most important thing, guys, is just a double standards. If you come in from a European country to UK, you're supposed to quarantine for 10 days. Can you imagine asking these Europeans or Biden to quarantine for 10 days? They would just say, get lost, Johnson. So it's just double standards. One rule for them and the rest, another rule for the rest of the population. So I'm going to end it, guys, here. So don't forget to like, subscribe, and please comment as much as you can. Any support on Patreon or buy me a coffee would be very useful. And also, if you can help me find ways to grow this channel, put it on Chinese social media, for example, that'll be very, very useful. And thanks, guys, for the support and the love. And I'll continue creating great content for you. And thanks for all the support that you've been giving me. So take care of yourselves and good night.